I was at an event at a very well-known resort with a bunch of very well-known actors and actresses who had become my students over the last several months. So imagine these well-known actors and actresses coming to my garage in Hawaii, right, and seeing me then open a store. And then I was doing the on-site parties, and they came up to me one afternoon after I'd done a big class. I taught, I don't know, 30 or 40 people. And they said, Maya, we want to talk to you about something. And I was like, okay. And I'm just cleaning up. And they said, and I'll never forget this, we've traveled the world and we've never seen anything like what you do. And we believe everybody deserves to experience Hawaii fluid art, and we think you should franchise.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Path to Freedom podcast. Today I'm joined by Maya Ratcliff, who is the founder and CEO of Hawaiian Fluid Art, which I think is a very interesting franchise concept, one that's a little bit newer to me in terms of, my experience working with them, but this brand's been around for a few years now and is off to a really good start in terms of their expansion through franchising. So Maya, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. And in Hawaii, aloha.
Aloha. I love it.
Yeah.
I could go for a little Hawaii right now. It's been overcast and rainy in my neck of the woods this week.
Yes, here in Dallas as well. I spent nine years on the island, spoiled by perfect weather, and now I live in Dallas in order to grow the brand, and it's an adjustment, I'll tell you.
So I'll tell you a real quick story, and then we can get down to business. But one of my good friends from high school went into the Coast Guard right after high school, and this is one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. Very funny, very charming, but the Lord did not bless him with a lot in terms of IQ, or at least, in a schoolroom setting, right? Like he was
Yep,
just
yep, yep.
not the type of kid that, was interested in school. So anyways, I think graduated like second to last in our class. And so we went into the Coast Guard, and then, fast forward 10 years or so, and we had like a reunion, and a bunch of us were standing there and we're like, this guy, Brad, he's smarter than all of us, because with the Coast Guard, he, I think, went to Tampa first and then a couple other places, but then he ended up in Hawaii for like 6 or 7 years. Beautiful house on the beach that the Coast Guard was paying for, raised his family there. Now he's in the Outer Banks of North Carolina in a beautiful area. So, and he's done very, very well, for himself with that career track. So we always kind of laughed at that like, we thought Brad was the dummy of the group, and turned out he was smarter than the rest of us.
I love it. I love it.
So you're in Dallas now, but
Yeah.
did spend some time in Hawaii. So start off, just kind of share with us, what is Hawaiian Fluid Art?
Okay, so Hawaii Fluid Art is a fabulous combination of a retail art gallery in the front and an active art studio in the back. So when you first walk in, you're surrounded by beautiful art pieces from local artists, artisans, jewelry makers, candle makers, etc. And the majority of that is on consignment. And then in the back, we have an active art studio where we teach 8 different types of art, resin art, fluid art, hat making, resin tumblers, and the list goes on and on. And we teach those on a walk-in basis and by appointment. So every hour we teach a different art form every day. It's a lot of fun, and we bring joy to our students across the United States.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I'm thinking my oldest daughter would love that. We did a birthday party for her a few years ago. I forget the name of the place, and I believe it is a franchise, but there was a kind of sit down art component to it where they all did, a little craft of some sort. But the main attraction was they put these big plastic jumpsuits on and they went in this room and just got to go to town throwing paint. They put a canvas up against the wall and they were just throwing paint at it, but
Yeah.
then they got to bring the canvas home. And obviously we did it for her birthday, but I found myself in there in one of these plastic jumpsuits and I had a blast doing it, and I've actually still got that painting hanging in my office. It turned out kind of cool. Some of the, 4-year-olds did better than I did, but I was still pretty happy with mine. But it's interesting that you've also got this consignment retail component to it as well. And we're going to dive in, to more of the nuts and bolts of the business model itself. But
Mhm.
where did this come from? Do you have a background in art? Where did the idea to start this and then, actually turn it into a business really originate from?
So I do not have a background in art. I was looking for a hobby. I
Really?
was I worked too much. I was a consultant that went in and helped restructure small to medium-sized businesses. It was a lot of pressure, and I needed a hobby. I had to find a way to relax on the weekends, and I took all these art classes, and I was horrible at all of them. And I thought, wait a minute, you're supposed to feel good about yourself when you go and
Right.
do a hobby, right? You're supposed
Yeah.
to feel rejuvenated and excited. And I would come out of these art classes like, "Wah, wah, wah. What did I do wrong here?" And
Yeah.
so I just started playing with paint and I kind of came up with my own art form. And then I started posting things on Facebook, like, look what I made. And then people started wanting to buy it. And then fast forward a little bit, and people started asking me to teach. And so I started teaching people with traumatic brain injuries. And I
Oh,
set up
really?
yeah. So I first started with people with different abilities, people
Mm.
that were missing limbs, people that had traumatic brain injuries, people that were completely blind. And I set up a studio in my detached 2-car garage. And more and more people started asking, hey, can I come to a class? So finally, I just did a little thing on Facebook that said this Saturday, art classes with some pictures. Boy, was there a turnout. There was such a
Really?
turnout, yes, that I ended up teaching, I don't remember if it was 50, 55 people that first day in
Wow.
my garage with people standing around outside talking, waiting to come in and be able to do an art experience. And fast forward, in the first 6 months, I taught over 1,000 people out of that garage. And at the time, I still had a full-time job.
Yeah.
And so now this is, at this point, it's May of 2021, the height of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized that I needed to open a retail establishment, that I couldn't keep doing it out of my garage.
Yeah.
And I had this idea to have the art gallery in the front because I had met all these cool artists when I was taking art classes. Even though I was bad at it, they were good at it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought, let's give a place for local artists, artisans, jewelry makers to display their wares. And so that's how I came up with that idea. And then the active art studio, I took what I'd been doing in my garage, put it in a retail environment. And at the same time that I was doing that, I created the mobile unit. So we can take the party to you. We can come to your home, to your office, to a hospital, to a school, etc. And I didn't know anything about franchising. It wasn't even on my radar until I was at an event at a very well known resort with a bunch of very well known actors and actresses who had become my students over the last several months. So imagine these well known actors and actresses coming to my garage in Hawaii, right, and seeing me then open a store. And then I was doing the on site parties. And they came up to me one afternoon after I'd done a big class. I'd taught, I don't know, 30 or 40 people. And they said, Maya, we want to talk to you about something. And I was like, okay. And I'm just cleaning up. And they said, and I'll never forget this, we've traveled the world and we've never seen anything like what you do. And we believe everybody deserves to experience Hawaii fluid art. And we think you should franchise.
Wow. What a testament.
It was to this day, I still get emotional about it because it's completely changed my life and it's changed the lives of hundreds of other people.
Yeah.
And that's when I started looking into franchising, and I threw myself in, and here we are today. And of course, there's a lot of work between that day and today. But I went home that night and I wrote down some goals: franchise your business, open a store on the strip in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
have your own paint brand, have 350 locations within 4 years. And I wrote all of these goals. And so far, we're ahead of schedule on all of them. And that's pretty exciting.
It's incredibly exciting, and also, you know, like you said, doesn't just happen, right? There's been a lot of hard work, I'm sure, sacrifice,
Yes.
a lot of learning, that's happened between the time you sat down and wrote those goals down to now. But isn't it amazing, when you do actually take pen to paper and get very specific with your goals,
Yeah.
how things will kind of start to fall in place. It always requires hard work and effort and persistence, but I mean, I've seen numerous examples of that in my own life and businesses that we've built, and it never ceases to amaze me how instrumental that can be. So I want to ask about one thing that you mentioned, because it was curious to me. So when you first started teaching people, you mentioned teaching people with traumatic brain injuries and other, um, I guess, kind of unique circumstances. Is there some sort of a therapeutic component to this that you found?
Very much so. So I'm going to
Yeah.
give you a little story. When I had been posting my works on Facebook, the Big Island of Hawaii is a small island. They call it the Big Island, very small population. So a lot of people knew who I was just because of the work that I did for local businesses around the island. And this gentleman reached out to me and he said, my wife had a traumatic brain injury and we're trying to get her excited about life again. Is
Mm.
there any way you would be willing to teach her? And I was like, absolutely, bring her. And the next morning she comes in and he left. He needed some space. He was the full time caregiver.
Sure.
So she came in and we created a piece of art. And she had this miraculous moment of clarity. And she just looked at me and she says, I'm going to remember this. I don't remember things. And she started talking to me about how she doesn't remember how to tie her shoes. She doesn't remember. So she has no short term. She has some long term, but she forgets what she does every day. She would go, and when she was with me, she'd get a cup and then she'd turn around and come back. And then she goes, oh, I'm supposed to get a cup. And then she'd walk to go get another cup. And so I would guide her through this. And I got to spend some quality time with her. And what I started having her do was come more often and have her help me mix paint and just do everything. And one morning, I'll get a little sorry.
Oh,
One
no
morning,
problem.
her husband called me and said, she remembers. And I said, she remembers what? And he said, she woke up this morning and she said, I know I did art yesterday, but can I do it again today?
Wow.
And that meant something to me. And she was my student and continues to be a student of Hawaii Fluid Art. Even though I don't live in Hawaii anymore, she works with one of our instructors there, and it has a therapeutic aspect to it. And I don't have any crazy certifications or anything, but art is healing. Art brings joy. Art can make you feel like you're five again. Art makes you forget that your shoulders and back hurt when you're older. Art just does, it's magic. It's just magic. And we see that magic on a daily basis with people coming to our studios, whether they're 4 years old or 104. We see the joy on their face as they're creating. And that's a whole different kind of business. When you can bring
Yeah.
joy to people at that kind of a level, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, that's incredible. One of the first franchise brands that I worked with was a company that installed things like wheelchair lifts and wheelchair ramps and stair lifts. And so the, kind of core client base was
Mhm.
people with physical disabilities, and all of these products were aimed at helping them get around their home and have access to things that prior to that they didn't. And so I
Yeah.
got to see, some of the same type of, just gratitude from the customer's standpoint. And then of course I've been involved in businesses where there's not as much of that component, still needed product and service, but not, maybe quite as life changing or impacting. And there's definitely something different about being involved in a business where you can really see day to day the type of positive impact that you're having for your
Yeah.
clients. So have you done any research? Like, is there any science behind why this type of art form is therapeutic? And in the case of the example that you provided, why it was helping this lady
Yeah.
regain her memory a little bit. I'm just curious if there's any research or
There
science.
actually is. There's a lot of data out there that shows that art is truly therapeutic, not only to people with traumatic brain injuries, but people that served in the military, that went through intense trauma, children, abused children, neglected children. There is a lot. If you Google art therapy and the benefits to a child and adult, there is a ton of information out there, to the point that we at Hawaii Fluid Art are working with a very large company that handles insurance billing, and working with senior centers and schools and people in treatment for different types of addiction. And we are working on being able to actually take insurance because of the therapeutic benefits of what we do.
Wow.
All of our studios are ADA compliant. We will not approve a space if it is not completely and totally ADA compliant. Um, yeah, so there is some really amazing research out there that you can look into, but we know the difference that it makes, and we know that our franchisees know the difference that it makes. And you're going to find that our family of franchisees are really driven to give. They really want to
Mm.
give to their community. Profits aside and all that stuff, the business is profitable, but what we're really about is about the ohana, the family,
Mm.
the spirit of aloha. What can we give to our students that is going to make them feel good and want to come back over and over again?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. I wasn't even, in my head thinking that, we would go that direction, but as you started sharing some of those examples, I was curious if there, was some science behind it. And because I feel like I've heard other examples of where some type of art form was
Mhm.
being used, in similar cases. So that's really cool. And I work with a lot of people that are considering business ownership, and uh many of them are very, very driven by wanting to get into a business where they can genuinely help people. And obviously, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that
Yeah.
through business, but something like this, I could see really speaking to a lot of people, especially if they have a family member or a friend or someone that's been through something similar where
Yeah.
it's a little more personal.
Yeah. And it's not just people with different abilities and traumatic brain injuries that we work with, but it's important that everybody feels welcome. Our average student is, well, we don't really have an average student, from 4 to 104, a male, female, doesn't it just it's across the board, but we will always be sure to be fully inclusive so everybody can come and create. And yeah, it's an important part of our larger business.
Yeah, sure. That's a good point, right? This is designed to be for everyone.
Mhm.
So talk to me a little bit more. So you shared a little bit of kind of how the idea to franchise the business started. When did you actually hit go on franchising, and where are you today with the franchise?
Okay. So the night of that conversation, I went home and wrote down these goals, knew nothing about franchising, threw myself in. research for 6 months. And what I realized was I was in Hawaii during COVID. I needed a second location so I could compare Hawaii store to a different store. So as I was doing all this research and writing SOPs and getting in the negotiating with payroll companies and everything else, before I even launched, I was doing that. I opened my second location in Kansas City, Missouri. And this was October 10th, 2021. And that store did very well. And at that time I realized, okay, let's turn up the burners, let's go. And I spent a year working on infrastructure, everything that I could find, everything that I could read, everything that made sense from my past business development, even a group medical plan. We even have a group medical plan for our franchisees and their employees. So we launched in April of 2022, so almost 2 years ago. And where we are today, sometimes it's so much. It's so exciting. It's hard to put into words. So where are we today? We have 23 stores open. We have 47 in different stages of development with build outs. We have well over 100 units sold. By the end of this year, even if we didn't award another territory, we'd still have over 100 units open by the end of this year.
Wow.
We've just launched in Canada. We are launching in the Asian markets in Australia at the end of this year. We have a private paint label. We have a private resin label. We have our own canvas label. We have incredible infrastructure. We have a large corporate team that supports our current franchisees. We do everything from real estate acquisition to construction management. We have franchisee success managers. We have a very profound marketing team. We just help them with everything. We are a full service brand. You are not just buying a logo and an idea. This is a full service brand. We've been awarded just some incredible awards along the way. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow evening, Saturday, the 27th, we are being featured on Fox Business National News in something called Trending Today as one of the top franchises available on the market for sale.
Wow.
And Fox, that airs tomorrow. So we're pretty excited about that. It's a 6-minute segment. 5 or 6 minute segment, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
That's a very big deal, especially for like prime time major media outlets to get 6 minutes. They don't even give a presidential candidate 6 minutes. So if you're listening to this podcast, then there's a good chance that you're looking to create more freedom in your own life. There's also a good chance that you realize that owning your own business can be a great way to take more control of your livelihood and create more of that freedom that we're all looking for. Also, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you realize that I specialize in franchise ownership. In addition to owning franchise businesses myself, I have a franchise consulting firm, Path to Freedom, where I help people navigate what is typically an overwhelming process of understanding franchising, identifying specific franchise companies that could be a fit, and then conducting the due diligence in a thorough and efficient manner with those franchise brands. My whole purpose here is to leverage my experience working for franchisors, owning franchises myself, and how we've been able to use that to create more freedom in our lives and help you determine if that could be a path that makes sense for you as well. So if any of this sounds interesting, if you've considered business ownership in the past, whether you've explored franchising specifically or not, I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to learn more about you and what it is that you're working towards in your life and determine if I may be in a position to help. A great starting point is the link below in the show notes, which will take you to a short form to fill out, and you'll receive a free copy of an ebook that I've put together, The 7 Steps to Freedom Through Franchise Ownership. That'll also get us connected, and I'd love to set up an introductory call where I can explain a little bit more about the process that I use to help people determine if franchise ownership could be a great way to start charting their own path to freedom. So click the link below in the show notes, receive the ebook, and let's get connected. I'd love to hear from you. No, in all seriousness, I mean, just as you were kind of, listing off some of these things, I'm thinking, about that list you told us earlier that you wrote down. I'm like, all right, she checked that one off. She checked that one off. So, um, yeah, incredible success over a relatively short period of time, comparatively speaking to what you see with the trajectory of many other
Yeah,
franchise brands that are, today great, very established brands. So, what are some of the, I guess, biggest things that you would attest, the success that you've had to? Because, like, you said you didn't originally start this, even thinking it was going to turn into a business, much less a franchise. You
yeah,
didn't really know a lot about franchising when you first started considering it. One thing I will quickly highlight is the fact that you had the foresight to go open a second location before you really tried to run with franchising. I think that was very smart on your part, especially given just where your original location
yeah,
was. I could see a lot of people saying, "Okay, great, makes sense." I could see why it would work in somewhere like Hawaii. I think I
yeah,
remember hearing you say the second location you kind of intentionally chose like not a big major market, somewhere
yeah,
that wasn't anything like Hawaii in terms of the climate. I forget what
yeah.
market it was, but I remember it striking me as like, that was an interesting choice, but it sounds like it was strategic.
That was Kansas City, Missouri, because they have cruddy
Yeah,
winters. And
yeah,
I wanted to
yeah,
see what would happen if we plunked this tropical business down in the middle of a snowstorm, right? What's going to
yeah.
happen?
Smart.
Well, guess what? In the winter, people want to escape, and when they see the sign Hawaii Fluid Art, they're like, "What's this?" And they walk in
Yeah.
the door. And in the summer, when it's hot as sin, they're like, "What's this? Hawaii? I love Hawaii. Let's check it out." And so it's been a really good location. And as we open around the United States, we find that same interest in every city, town, and state that we open in.
Yeah, I could see it being very eye-catching and people just wanting to check it out and see what it's all
Yeah,
about, and then it sounds like you have a pretty sticky customer, once they have come in and experienced it, it's not, "Okay, we did that, it was fun, but not
yeah,
gonna go again." It sounds like you do generate a fair amount of repeat business. So
yes,
what else would you point to in terms of some of the success that you've had? Like looking back on it now, what are some of the things that you're like, okay, I feel like we did that right and that
yeah.
really helped propel us to the growth that we've seen thus far?
The infrastructure, absolutely the infrastructure. Having a support team before you need them,
Mm,
investing
yeah.
money in smart things, realizing that as a founder, you're not going to get paid. You're not taking a paycheck. You're reinvesting every single penny back into the brand to make it better for the franchisees. We have something called HFA University. It is an online, it's a digital education center to learn about customer service, to learn about the Aloha spirit on how to do upgrades. We have training portals. We have a communication system. We even have a curated radio station for every one of our stores. So we have it's wonderful because you don't want to get in trouble just using Pandora, right?
Yeah.
You have to have licenses for this music. So we have a curated radio station. It was very important to me to negotiate rates down for all of my franchisees, so we all use the same point of sale. We all have the same chart of accounts. We all have the same employee access
Yeah.
and payroll company. And so I really worked on making sure that we had everything that I could think of that these franchisees were going to need and want. And then with strategic partnerships and bringing people into the brand that understand more than I do. Our director of real estate acquisition, she's no nonsense real estate commercial real estate broker, and she helps our franchisees find that. Our construction manager to help oversee the construction for the franchisee in a very simple build out. I found people that were good humans that wanted to see the brand grow. And
Yeah.
we make decisions as a whole, not only on with the leadership team, but also the franchisees. We have monthly meetings, and when I have a new idea, I say, here's the idea. Like our latest one is a membership, rolls out in 2 weeks. Hawaii Fluid Art now offers a membership.
Very cool.
And we had that discussion with the current franchisees and said, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? And that's a decision made as a whole because they're my business partners. I don't
Yep.
just tell them what to do,
Yeah.
right? This is a relationship. And so really it's been that infrastructure, and it's profound, and it's just going to get bigger and better as time goes on.
Yeah, the infrastructure before you need it is so critical.
Mhm.
And then finding good strategic partners,
Yes.
with a model like yours, the real estate component is so critical. I've seen what could have been great brands really never take off because they didn't have any trouble selling, but then it was difficult for them to help their franchisees find locations and
Yep.
manage the build out and get open in a timely manner. And if that doesn't happen smoothly, and there's always going to be wrinkles, right, when you're dealing with
Yeah.
commercial real estate and construction and all of that. But if there's not good support and good guidance for franchisees, many of which have probably never undertaken anything like
Correct.
that before,
Correct.
that can cause some real issues. I know you're partnered in some capacity with Front Street Equity, which is, Eric Van Horn, someone that's been on this podcast numerous times, good friend and mentor of mine, been around the block a little bit when it comes to
Mhm.
franchising, as has
Yeah.
Jeff Herr, his partner. So I say this all the time on the show, but I love it when I see founders, especially if they don't yet have a background in franchising,
Yep.
they're smart enough and they're humble enough to say, you know what, I've not done this before. I'm confident
Yes.
in myself and my capabilities, but let me go find some people that are aligned with me from a value standpoint, but do know what it takes to grow a franchise brand and do it the right way. So
Yep.
very, very cool, and congratulations again on all of the success that you've had. So let's talk a little bit more about the business itself, and maybe first from kind of a customer's perspective, right? So
Mhm.
when we talk about paint, to my mind at least, because I'm a franchise nerd, I think of like some of the sip and paint
Yeah.
type concepts. So is this similar to that, or how would it be different from your perspective?
It's very different. So no offense to any of those brands out there.
Sure.
They all serve a purpose. But when you go into one of those studios, they're a little sterile, right? They're white. They're just very sterile. And then you're painting like a bird on a branch in front of a barn.
Right.
Well,
Everyone's painting the same thing,
everybody's
right?
painting the same thing.
Yeah.
And where are you going to hang that in your house? I mean, the experience is fun, but
Yeah.
seriously, when I talk to people, they're like, oh, yeah, I did that one time and I put it in my closet, or I did that one time and I put it in my garage. That's the difference.
Yeah.
One time is what I hear.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
Hawaii Fluid Art is different is that you actually create beautiful art. All of our art forms are easy to do. They're all non-toxic, they're safe, they're good for any age, and the art is actually beautiful. You'll never create the same piece. You're not using a paintbrush, right? You're layering paint in cups, you're pouring it on the canvas, and you're tilting the canvas around. That's one of our art forms. We also look for trending ideas. Like, have you guys seen how the Stanley Cup craze is right now?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh
Well, for
yeah.
6 months,
My
we've been
wife's
making.
on that train for sure.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
for over 6 months, I guess over a year now, we've been making custom tumblers
Oh, that's
where
cool.
you take one of those giant tumblers and you put it on the spinning machine and you do your own resin design on it. So we've been
That's
doing
cool.
that. We do tons of those.
I bet.
So we try and stay ahead of trends. Our studios are painted black, and there's all these mood lights everywhere. There's neon, there's live tropical plants, there's fish tanks. So when you walk in, the
Curated
first
soundtrack, I'm sure,
curate,
contributes
yes, a
to
curated
the
with
vibe.
playing cool Tahitian music. So everywhere, every studio you go to, you walk in and They all smell like a vanilla kissed orange. We have a signature scent. So it's a vibe, it's an experience. And that's why our average return rate is 4 times every 6 months. And that's just an average return rate. And if you think
Sure.
about Hawaii's in there with tourists just coming and going and coming and going, most people are coming in at least once a month, which is why we just launched a membership program.
Yeah, that's interesting. Really interesting, because one of the more common requests I get as I talk to people, especially if they're, somewhat sophisticated when it comes to business ownership, recurring revenue, right?
Yeah.
Membership
Yeah.
based.
Yeah.
That's very attractive in a lot of potential buyers' eyes. So when we talk about the type of art, and I'll have my editor insert some
Yeah.
actual examples of pictures from your website,
Yeah.
so people watching this can kind of get a feel for it. We'll also, link your website in the show notes so people can easily find it and go check it out. But so is it more of a just kind of design, or are people actually able to do like pictures? Like give
Mhm.
me a feel for what the actual art form itself is. It sounds like there's a variety of options.
There is. Yeah. So part of it is this organic, fluid, earthy vibe, but to be able to use any colors. And that is fluid art. Then we do a resin beach scene where we actually create a beach scene with black sand and resin and everything. And we'll get you some pictures that we can insert on this.
Yeah.
Then we have the resin tumblers where you can create any organic design you want to. Then we have the more structured classes where we have glass painting, where you actually use a brush and a stencil that goes under the piece of glass. So you paint this any way you want to, and then we flip it over and do resin art on top of it, or fluid art on top of it. So you've got this cool vibe going behind a very structured painting. And then we have a mosaics class where you can create with little chips of glass and little bits of pottery and rock, and you can create something that's your name or your favorite football team or whatever the case may be. We have a skateboard class where you can do your own skateboard with fluid art on the back of it. So you
Very
can
cool.
we do guitars. We have a guitar kit so you can
Surfboards. I mean, yeah,
all
it's
of it.
almost like endless
It
options.
is.
And I mean,
It
to
is.
me, that's clearly why your customers do come back so often, because they never have to do the same thing twice. So
They don't. Yeah.
I guess the only other question I would have then in terms of, differentiation from other art franchises, can people drink while they're doing this? Because
Yes.
that is an attraction to, some of
It
my
is.
wife's gone to numerous girls' nights at some of these sip and paints, and they're
Mhm.
more for the sip than they are the paint.
Yes, you can. So some of our
Yeah.
studios are BYOB. Some of our studios have beer and wine license. Some
Oh,
of our
okay.
studios have full bars in them. As a matter of fact, we're
There
launching
you
one in
go.
Salt Lake City that has called the Aloha Lounge that's inside of the Hawaii Fluid Art. So you want to bring in your kids or the wife and the husband come in, they can have a couple cocktails, then they can go create. And one of the cool things is we don't just do little canvases. We do canvases all the way up to 4 foot by 5 foot.
Oh, wow.
So you can bring your dentist office in. You're the dentist. You're going to bring your team in, and you can all work on one big piece to make something glorious while you're sipping on champagne. I
Wow.
mean, we have created experiences here. They're not classes, they're experiences, and we customize them for large groups, small groups, individuals. We partner with different food vendors where we can do charcuterie and champagne, or we can do malasadas, or whatever the customer wants. We're going to do that for them. It's all about the experience. It's about the 5-star review on Google.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. That's fascinating. And then, from a franchise owner's perspective, this is multiple revenue streams, right? So you've got
Absolutely.
the retail component,
Yes.
or was that just in Hawaii, or is that part of
No, it's
the
everywhere. It's
franchise model?
everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get you some good pictures that you can embed.
Yeah, that'd be great. And so I assume the franchise owners are making at least a little bit of a margin on anything that's sold out of their
A
location.
big margin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 40%.
Okay. So they're making a margin there, obviously on the classes. You've got walk-in business. So it sounds like there's actually a B2B component to this too, right? Where you can market this to businesses. Hey, this is a team
Yes.
building event,
Yes.
holiday party, just team outing, anything of that nature. And then, in at least some locations, you've got the revenue from alcohol and maybe even
Yes.
food being brought in. And that seems to be a lot more common. Like we live in coastal North Carolina and we've got all these little kind of developments popping up that are very I don't even know what the right way to describe it is, but artisan,
Yeah.
like we've got an area called the cargo district, right? Everything's built out of shipping containers. And, it's all these cool local businesses. They all share resources and work together. And,
Mhm.
so like there's a couple of breweries. None of them do food, but they're always going to have a local food truck there. They're
Yes.
always going to
Yeah.
have, another local vendor that's providing food options for anyone in there having drinks that also wants to have food. That seems to be, at least in my area, more and more common, and people like
Yeah.
that.
They do.
So
They do.
that's interesting. So you've got multiple revenue streams. You're rolling out this membership
Mhm.
based. This is something that could appeal to really almost anyone.
Yes.
Um, from a infrastructure standpoint, right? So this is clearly a storefront type of business. Customers are coming to you. Is there any sort of a mobile component where one of your instructors or a franchisee could take a class to someone or
Yes.
to a group of people?
Absolutely. It's called the mobile unit, and we take the party to you. We have it's a man in a van. So
Okay.
basically, you can get a used or a new Ford Transit Connect van. We logo out the sides, and we take the party to you. And we do big revenue on this because
I
we
bet.
only take the large size canvas, and that includes resin. So it's $165 per canvas. And the reason we say per canvas is because when we go do these parties, sometimes people do more than one canvas.
Yeah, I'd mess one
So,
up and I'd need at least 3 canvases, I'm
oh
sure, if
no,
it
no.
were
Let me
me.
tell you, even if you mess one up, we just put a little more paint over top of it and it turns out glorious. So
Okay.
we do birthday parties, we do senior centers, we do
Mm.
schools, we do libraries, we do community centers at subdivisions, we do resorts, the list goes on and on. So we at a corporate level have all the training, all the manuals, all the market materials, everything you need for your business to business component. It's a huge revenue source. Our classes run, all of our art forms run at least a 90% profit margin. Some of them go as high as 97% profit margin. So when you have somebody coming in and paying $120 for this particular art piece, that costs you about $6.10. So classes are very important. You only need 10 people a day in a class to make a very nice number, a very nice month.
Well, and
And
it's a low labor model too, I would assume,
yeah,
right?
it's
Because if
one
you've
to
got a
many,
yeah,
one to many.
one
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Now, so that brings me to another question because one of the biggest concerns a lot of people have as they start, evaluating different business opportunities is, how am I going to staff this? How am I going to find the right type of people? So what type of
Mhm.
I guess the first question is what type of model are you really aiming for in terms of are your franchisees in the locations day in day out actually
Mm-mm.
teaching classes? Are they hiring
Mm-mm.
people to do that? And if
Mm-mm.
so, what type of background do those people need to have? Do they need to be artists? Can you
Okay.
train them? What does that look like?
Yeah. I love this question. Love it. We don't want artists. I don't want to be
Okay.
lectured on color theory.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
certification process. It's called the Hawaii Fluid Art Certified Instructor course. We go to the franchisee store and train in person for 8 days. We're going to train your employees Number one, you only need 2.5 employees to be open 7 days a week.
Okay.
Okay, 2.5 employees. And we have a hiring portal. All your job descriptions are already written. We have about 200 applicants for every open position we have. We
Wow.
pay well. We offer great benefits. So you're going to get a quality employee. Our turnover is almost non existent. And we come to you and train you on site in your studio. So, do we want the franchisee to be there for that? Yes. But do we want them working in their studio? No. Those are our franchisees are $1,000 an hour people, not $18.50 an hour people. They should be at the Chamber of Commerce meetings. They should be doing business to business. They should be at the governor's ball. They should be golfing and having fun and living life. We are a truly semi-absentee model, and we have all of the protocols and procedures put in place in order for franchisees to be able to run their stores from afar. I haven't even been to my Hawaii store in 2 years. It takes care of itself.
If I were you, I'd be there all the time just to be in Hawaii. But no, that's well,
Oh,
I mean, it makes sense for this type of model. So, I mean, you really want franchise owners that can, number one, assemble the team, right,
yeah,
and set
yeah,
the right expectations. They need to be able to create a culture within their organization. They need to be a leader, and then it's more big picture oversight
yes.
and then being a brand ambassador. And this is one of these businesses that's fun. You know, just having the mobile van driving around. I mean, that's a billboard that's going to catch so many
Hmm.
people's attention. But there's we've owned a couple of franchises, just sold one, still have one. One of them is very much kind of a fun, want to have type of product.
Uh-huh.
The other one was very much a need, kind of demand driven
Yeah,
business. Huge difference in terms of just day-to-day stress levels
yeah,
when, because when you're telling people, hey, this is what I do, the way in which it's received, people's eyes either kind of glaze over or they get excited about it with you.
yeah.
And that is something that people should stop and think about, right? Like
Hmm.
any of these needs driven, demand based businesses are needed and they can be very, very lucrative in many cases. But, when you're considering getting into business and with so many different types of franchises out there, you should really stop and consider what type of lifestyle do I want, right? And if I own a business, chances are I'm talking about that business all the time to all different types of people. How do I want that to go, right? Do I want
Hmm.
it to be fun, engaging, kind of loose, or like we owned an insulation franchise, right? Like there's no quicker way to, get people to leave you alone at a party than start talking to them about insulation.
I
Like
can't
nobody
imagine.
cares, right? We all
Yeah,
need it,
no.
but
Yeah.
it's not a fun thing to talk about. People don't get excited about it. You're not laughing about it. So this is a great business in that regard. And I imagine compared to a lot of businesses from the employee standpoint, from the franchise owner standpoint, it's not as stressful as a lot of
No,
businesses. You
it's
know,
fun. It's
yeah, it's
fun.
fun, and there's not emergencies, right? If a customer doesn't have a great experience, it's not life or death by
Yeah,
any stretch
but
of the
they do.
imagination.
And we have a way to guarantee that. And that's one of the reasons that we have all 5-star reviews across the United States. And that's because if we can tell that a customer doesn't love their piece, we just pull them aside and say, hey, I don't think you love this piece. And they'll be, no, no, it was a great experience. No, no, no. Let's do it again. And we just swipe the paint right off that canvas, let them fill another cup and do it again. It costs you $1.10.
Yeah,
Let them have the
totally.
experience and the outcome that they deserve to have. And so when you get to go to work every day and see smiles and you never have any complaints and you get 5-star reviews and people hug you after class and tell you that you've changed their life through an art class,
Yeah.
it's a totally different vibe. I mean, that's what allows me to work 18 hours a day is all the positive energy that comes from the stores and the franchisees and the customers. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, and that's something that a lot of people don't put as much thought into as they should, when they're starting to see, what type of business do I think I wanna be in? That's a
Hmm.
very, very important part. So tell me a little bit more about your franchisees. What types of folks do you have in your system today?
Mhm.
Are they all coming from kind of a similar background? Is it all over the board? And the follow-up to that is like, what are you seeing your most successful owners do maybe a little bit differently or
Yeah.
above and beyond everyone else?
Okay, so I'm going to start that with what we look for.
Okay.
Okay, we look for a sunshiny personality, somebody that is a go-getter, somebody that has drive and motivation and excitement about them. All right. Business experience is a plus.
Sure.
Now, what our current franchisees are, we have attorneys, we have doctors, we have pharmacists, we have IT professionals, we have school teachers, we have police officers, we have a politician. I mean, it's across the board. The one thing that they all have in common, they don't know anything about art. None of them
Yeah.
did. None of them are artists. But what they have in common is a spirit of togetherness, the want to be a part of a big happy family and to build something that's remarkable and beautiful. And to the point that these our franchisees, several of them work for corporate on the leadership team because
Mhm.
their stores are so easy to run that once they got them open, they were like, "Doo, doo, 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 doo,
Yeah.
you know,
What
what
now?
do we do now?" And
Yeah.
so they've come onto the leadership team to help make the brand better. Now, who does better? What does better? Which franchisees do better? Very easy question. The ones that follow the plan and the ones that are not in their stores constantly.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
you're in your store constantly, if you're in there doing the 1850 an hour work all day every day, you're not doing your business to business, you're not out in the community, you're not leading a team, you're not doing your social media, you're not following the plan.
Yep.
So our semi-absentee owners and true absentee owners are the ones that absolutely do better. Now we work with all of our franchisees. Anybody that we see that needs some guidance or some love or some help, that's on us. That's part of the full service brand, and we will coach them to get them to where they need to be. But without a doubt, if you follow the plan, it works.
Yeah.
And so that's what we really like to see with our franchisees.
Makes total sense. And you know, it's kind of a it's kind of the same with any good franchise, right? And it,
Hmm.
it blows
Hmm.
my mind to this day, how many people do buy franchises and then think they know better and hey, I'm gonna go do
Yeah.
this my own way.
Yeah.
And I imagine too, like your franchisees that do follow the plan, they're happier, they're more fulfilled, they're getting the actual results that they want out of the business. If they are working in the studio all day as kind of an 1850 an hour employee, they bought themselves a job, and that's,
Yeah.
I imagine, not what they were looking for. Also makes sense that
Mhm.
you don't really want, or that you're not attracting franchisees with a background in art, and same thing for the
No.
employees. That
No.
makes a lot
No.
of sense to me. I have a cousin that is an incredible artist, like studied in Italy for years. I mean, gets commissioned to do paintings for Catholic churches and all types of stuff. Like, it blows my mind. He'd be the biggest pain in the ass employee for a
Yes.
business like this
Yes.
because he
Yes.
knows too much, right? he's
He
a
knows too much.
he's a
He thinks that
trained
yes.
classical
Because they'll
artist.
exactly. They're going to lecture you about color theory. They're going to tell you this isn't art. This is a
Yeah.
craft.
Yeah.
Things like that.
That's
Great.
totally something he
So
would
we
say.
don't have
Yeah.
artists. We have creative people. Some of our franchisees are very creative, but none of them had any art experience. And I didn't have any art experience. Let's get real. I created these art forms because I wasn't any good at any of the other art forms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is a cool opportunity. It's certainly unique. I won't lie, when I first, heard that this was a brand that we were going to start working with, I rolled my eyes a little bit because I thought pain and sip, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've dug deep into some of those opportunities, and from my opinion is, from an ownership standpoint, they're lacking,
Yeah.
generally speaking, right? I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but yeah, so fascinating opportunity, unique model, super cool that you guys are rolling out this membership model. So I guess the last question I would have for you is, have you added anything else to your list in terms of goals? And, where do you see this thing 10 years from now and beyond?
I have added some things, and I tend to get a little emotional about it when I talk about it. And some of them may seem silly to other people, and that's okay.
Who
Number
cares about
one,
them?
we will be an international brand. We will be around the world. We'll be a recognizable household name. I want to be on the Joe Rogan show.
You and me both. You probably
I
have a
want
better
to
chance than I do, I
I
would
want
say.
to be on Good Morning America. I want to teach at some very high levels. I want our franchisees to be multi-unit owners that are incredibly happy with all things HFA. And on a personal level, I just want to be a happy individual, as happy as I am now, and continue to have that sunshine spirit, because that sunshine spirit gets you a long way in life. And one of the big goals that I had that we just got accomplished was the Las Vegas location on the Strip. And we opened about a week and a half ago. And
Awesome.
so we are now blurping, as we call it. That's our unit of measurement. And
Uh-huh.
we also have blurpblurp.com. We are blurping on the Strip in Las Vegas. And so I will let you know the next time we visit
All right.
what the rest of my new goals are.
That
Yeah.
sounds cool. Well, I would say you're well on your way. I can tell you're having a lot of fun, doing this. So
Yeah.
that's super cool to see. And again, congratulations on the success you've had so far. I think I have an angle for you to try to get on Rogan though, right?
Okay, tell me.
Talk about the therapeutic uses of this.
Mhm.
Do yourself a favor, somehow or another, weave in psychedelics. You know how much he likes to talk about psychedelic therapy. Not saying
Okay.
this is psychedelic, right? But if you can just kind of weave that in there, maybe draw a comparison or something like that, you just might get on his radar. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. He just had a guest on like a couple of days ago that's a professor at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. Um,
Nice.
so that was kind of neat to see. But
Yeah.
well, thank you for being here. I know you're super busy, so really appreciate you making some time to do this. And yeah, definitely send me if there's any specific pictures or anything you want
Oh,
to make
yeah.
sure
We'll just
we
send you
we
some.
include. Send me some good stuff like that. We'll put links to website in the show notes. Those out there listening, if you want to check it out from a customer perspective, good footprint of franchises across the US, and that's growing quickly. And if it's something you want to learn more about from a franchise ownership perspective, we can certainly make that happen as well. So Maya, thank you so much. Really appreciate everything you're doing and keep up the great work.
Thank you. And mahalo and aloha.
Mahalo.